There we go. Okay, so welcome to our session with children in need. We've got Liz with us today, which is fantastic. She's going to go through their programme. Just to explain, Wiltshire Community Foundation prior to COVID would have been doing various face-to-face events, particularly an annual funding event, but during COVID we've obviously put that online, and we've been doing a series of Meet the Funder events that have been, you know, really successful, and it's been great to meet lots of different funders, you know, that support work in Wiltshire and Swindon. So today we have Liz with us. I'm going to hand over to Liz shortly, and she will go through the Children in Need programme, but we will take a little bit of time at the end just to update you on the things that Wiltshire Community Foundation have got open as well, and also any of the other advice and support that we can offer at the moment. So I will hand over to Liz and let her tell us all about Children in Need.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Karen, and thank you all for having me here today. Really lovely to see you, and I hope you're enjoying some autumnal sunshine today like I am in Bristol. So my name's Liz. I am an impact manager in the Southwest. So I'm based in Bristol, but I cover Bristol, Somerset, Gloucestershire, Wiltshire and Dorset. And my colleague Juliet covers Cornwall, Devon and the Channel Islands. So we're a small team, but we work well together, which is always a good thing. So if you have any questions, as I said, just pop them in the chat box. We will have time to go through them at the end. And yeah, so we'll get going. There we go. So today I'm just going to be talking to you a little bit about our new funding streams, which will be shortly opening, hopefully before the end of this month. So I'm going to go through a little bit about our grant making strategy and how we've got to this point, and what our priorities currently are in Wiltshire as well. And I will say, bear with me, because this is the first time that I'm presenting these new programmes. So we're finalising a few details at the moment. So if there's a question which I'm not 100% sure on the answer to, I've discussed with Karen that I'll go away, I'll find out the answer, and I'll send it back so that you all get an update on that.
Liz, you've got your notes slides showing at the moment on the screen.
Oh.
Change, sorry.
Better? Or no?
Might need to reshare your screen.
That's so strange, because we literally did it 2 minutes ago, didn't we?
Yeah.
Any better?
Yeah, you might need to start. Oh no, it's doing it again. You changed it in display settings last time, yeah. That's it. Well done.
There we are. Perfect.
See then.
The delight of technology, isn't it? It's great when it works. Brilliant. So I'm just going to go over a little bit about our grant making strategy. So we paused earlier in this year to focus on developing our strategy for the next 3 years. We did this because, you know, we very much recognise that the needs of the sector have changed, and hopefully our new strategy is responding to those needs. And we kind of devised 4 key principles which have helped inform our new grant making model. So firstly, we really recognise the importance of sharing power with children and young people and their voice. And over the next 3 years, we're really striving to move decisions closer to children and young people from diverse communities across the UK. We also strive to act flexibly and accessibly, to make sure that all of our programmes and our application forms are as accessible, as responsive as possible, to give you guys the time to focus on doing what matters most, rather than spending time filling out application forms. As the BBC's charity, we also recognise that we can use our voice to build awareness and empathy around the pressing issues that are happening with children and young people across the UK at the moment. And we also really want to focus on building our partnerships to bring communities together for children and young people across the UK, both nationally and on a local level as well. So our strategy has really been informed by a wide variety of stakeholders, existing grantees, previous grantees, unsuccessful applicants, the wider sector and other funders as well. So it's been a real big piece of work, but we think that, you know, it's obviously taken in all of the feedback about what the sector needs, and hopefully you'll see that reflected in our new kind of grant making model. So as part of this, we've made some significant changes to our grant making model. The first two programmes are the ones that I'm going to go through with you today, which is our project funding and our core funding. These, as I say, we're aiming to open them before the end of this year, end of this month. And then we also have a third programme called Emerging Funding, which is expected in spring 2023. This is for kind of up and coming organisations, new organisations who haven't applied to Children in Need before, and more details on this will be released on the website over the next few months as well. It's worth saying upfront that you can only apply to one funding stream per year, so it's really important when you're looking at our website to try and get a sense of which programme is best for you, as I say, because you can only apply to one. The full strategy is on our website if you're interested in reading it, and we also have our strategy is described by Children and Young People, worked with a fantastic organisation up in the north who made it into a comic book, so it's a really great way of sharing that with children and young people if you're talking about how you apply for funding and things like that. So a little bit on who we are looking to fund. So ultimately, we want to fund organisations who are working with children and young people aged 18 and under, and really organisations who are putting children at the heart and the centre of what they do, and empowering children and young people through their work as well. We do also want to hear from organisations who are keen to keep learning and developing their work and are committed to making a difference in the lives of children and young people throughout, you know, their term of their grant and beyond. I'm just going to cover a little bit on what we call our minimum standards. All of this information is on our website, and when I send out the PowerPoint, I'll put in links to them as well so that you have them, so don't worry about writing them all down. When you're thinking about applying for Children Need funding, it's really important to take a look at our minimum standards on our website for eligibility purposes. So for our governance minimum standards, this is making sure you have a governing document which shows that you have suitable charitable aims, that do not specifically exclude work with children and young people, that your organisation is not for profit, you have a dissolution clause or asset lock in the event that the organisation were to close. We would also look to see that you have a governing body of trustees or directors with at least 3 members, and a formal written agreement for payments for any governing body members as well. In terms of the finance minimum standards, we would ask that you provide official accounts or financial records from the last 18 months. If you're a new organisation, you can submit a financial template in case you haven't had your accounts for a full year, and you can speak to your local team, so myself, about that. We would also need the accounts to show that the organisation is solvent, and a process for showing financial transactions or payments if there are for 2 unrelated authorisers as well. Then the third minimum standard that we review is around safeguarding. So for safeguarding, we would expect there to be a clear safeguarding policy in the organisation's own name, and the policy must include clear steps to take in the event of an incident or a concern about a child. We would also request that there's a named safeguarding representative in your organisation, and there are appropriate and regular safeguarding training and background checks for those who need it, particularly those who are in delivery positions working with children. As I say, all of these are on the website, so I know that's a lot of information, but you can go on at any point and you can have a little look at those. So I'm just going to cover the core funding stream first, and this is really, really exciting for us at Children in Need to be able to finally offer core funding. And this was a huge piece of feedback when we were going through our grant making strategy, that there's a really clear need for core cost funding. So when I say core cost funding, I mean anything that you need to run day to day as an organisation. So this could be management and administration costs. So you could apply for your CEO, your operations manager, or you could apply for a team leader role who is overseeing a service and is kind of in that role where they are making sure that the day-to-day project work can happen. You could apply for HR and payroll, office expenses, accountancy, communications, monitoring and evaluation, or things like governance costs as well. So as I say, we're really, really pleased to be able to offer this at Children in Need, because we know that it is something that would be incredibly beneficial for organisations to be able to apply for those costs, so that they can focus on, you know, running and having that stability over up to 3 years. So this programme is available for charities and not-for-profit organisations. As I say, you can apply for 1, 2 or 3 years as part of that. We are looking to prioritise smaller local organisations, so that would be a turnover of under £1 million. We don't make grants for over £120,000 a year, so the maximum you could apply for is £40,000 per year, but most grants we do make are for much less than that. And we aim to give much quicker decisions for grants where it's for £15,000 per year or less. As with all grant funders at the moment, we receive far more applications than we can fund. So as I say, if you come in for under £40,000 per year, then it may increase your chance of success if you can do that. We are also now offering a rolling programme, which again, we are very excited about Children in Need. So there are no deadlines to applying for us. You can apply at any time in the year that suits you, and we aim to give much quicker decisions. So for £15,000 and less, it's roughly about 10 to 11 weeks. And for over £15,000 per year, we say it's kind of around the 14, 15 week mark. With Children in Need, we are still an outcomes-based funder, so we would be really looking to see the difference that is made throughout the grant lifetime. And as part of that, in the application form, we still do ask for outcomes and improved differences that you would see as a result of working with these children and young people. And then the second project funding stream, this is very, very similar to what Children in Need have offered previously. So for project funding, this is for a very specific project, working with a specific group of children, young people, which again is kind of a defined set of activities. So your costs here might include staffing costs for running that project, kind of associated project costs, travel, volunteer expenses, anything you need to make that project run successfully. Again, this is for charities and for not-for-profit organisations, and you can apply for 1, 2 and 3 years. Again, we seek to prioritise smaller local organisations with £1 million less turnover, and the same applies in terms of the amount you can apply for. The maximum is £40,000 a year, total of £120,000, but most are for less than that. This is also a rolling programme, so again, you can apply for this at any point. And it is again outcomes based as well, so we'd be looking for what the project is, what the difference the project is going to make, and how that impacts the children's young people's lives. So just to give you a little bit of an overview of the current the process that's going to happen, because it is slightly different for anybody who has applied to Children in Need before. So before you apply, as I said, you can go on our website, you can check the minimum standards and eligibility, and you can also review the types of programmes that are currently on offer, deciding on which one may fit you best. If you want to speak to me prior to applying, please do get in touch. I've got my email at the end of these slides, and I'm more than happy to have a conversation with you before you do submit an application. A new part for our new funding programs is we are introducing an expression of interest form. So when you submit your expression of interest form, that allows us to look at our priorities, look at our current portfolio, and decide whether we would like to invite you to a full application. And really, the main purpose of this is that you're not spending a huge amount of time filling out a full application form if we don't think we're going to fund necessarily in that area. So the hope is that we can give you a much quicker decision, around 6 weeks, on whether we would like to invite you to submit a full application. If we do invite you to submit a full application, you'll have 120 days to submit your application along with any additional information we require. So that might be something like a checklist for if you're running residentials. You'll receive all of that at the same time, and then you have the 120 days to submit. If we have everything we need, we won't need to contact you. But if there are something that we would like to clarify, or if there's something that we may need a little bit of additional information on, we'll go to the finding out more stage. So this is a very informal conversation with your local officers. That would be myself. If there is something more complex, we may ask that it goes to an external assessor. If it's over £15,000, then it would go to an external assessor. But again, it's quite an informal call where we would discuss the application in more depth and perhaps clarify a couple of points. So we then would aim to send the decisions of the decision outcomes to say around 13-14 weeks. And then if you are successful with the grant, you'll have an offer letter and a grant acceptance form to complete. You might need to have a quick chat with your local officer if there are any conditions on the grant, and then you can start delivering and reporting, which is always, the exciting bit. So I'm just going to go over some of the current priorities in Wiltshire. And as part of our grant making strategy, we really want to try and be as transparent as possible about what we're currently funding and where the gaps are in our portfolio, so that you know upfront what your chances are of success depending on what we're already funding in the area and where we see our needs to cover our investment portfolio. So we will be updating our website every 6 months to reflect our geographical and thematic priorities. At the moment, Wiltshire is not currently listed as a priority ever. However, I wouldn't let you discourage you from applying, because we'll still want a diverse portfolio of grants. So even though we have geographical and thematic priorities on our website, it doesn't mean we're not going to fund anything else. The only exception for this in Wiltshire is currently Swindon. We have a really, really healthy level of investment in Swindon at the moment, so we wouldn't be looking for any more investment at this time. However, keep an eye on the website. In 6 months' time, if you're thinking of applying and you're based in Swindon, just get in touch with me, and I can tell you whether it's fluctuated at all and whether we'd be looking for investment in Swindon. It's always best just to get in touch and have a chat with me at the time. In terms of thematic areas, we're currently interested in projects that support kind of diverse communities in Wiltshire, and also projects that are supporting young carers as well. Again, if you wanted to have a chat with me, if you're outside of those kind of thematic areas, then please do, and happy to have a conversation. There we go. So hopefully plenty of time left for questions, because I'm sure you'll have lots on the new programmes. So yeah, any, please fire away.
Oh, thanks very much, Liz. That was brilliant. We've got a couple of questions already in the chat, but obviously if you've thought of any others, either continue to pop them in the chat as we talk through, or you can pop your hand up. Liz, is it worth stopping sharing your screen now so we can
see my face?
Yeah, so I think we can probably see everybody now on the screen. So yeah, either use the reactions button to put your electronic hand up or put your physical hand up, but I'll just go through. There's 3 questions in the chat, so if we do those first.
Yeah.
So we've got a question. Sorry, it says make space for girls, but I don't actually know your name.
Sorry, I'm Susanna. Yes, it makes me log in like this because of the email.
That's fine. Don't worry. Don't worry. So Susanna has asked, when you say apply to one funding stream per year, is that a calendar year or is that every 12 months?
Every 12 months. So if you applied in the February and you weren't successful, you would have to wait till the following February.
Okay. And question from Kath at First Light: if you are unsuccessful at the expression of interest stage, you reapply in the same year?
That's an interesting one, and one that's being kind of ironed out at the moment. So I think it would be 12 months, so you'd have to wait 12 months at EOI stage. However, particularly with our national and regional priorities at the moment, you know, as I say, we're updating those every 6 months. So if for some reason at the EOI stage you're unsuccessful, but in 6 months' time we think actually it might be time for you to reapply, then we'll have that conversation locally. But I think as a rule it will probably be 12 months unless we specifically get in touch with you about it.
Okay. And then another one from Susanna: are you able to talk at all about the emerging funding stream, or will this come later?
Yeah, unfortunately, this is one that will come later. Our team are very busy beavering away, ironing it all out at the moment. So keep an eye on our website because it's being continually updated with more information about the emerging grant stream, but it's anticipated for spring 23.
Yeah. Okay, lovely. Thank you. So they're the three questions we've had in the chat at the moment. Does anybody have any other questions, anything specific about priorities or the process of applying, or oh, Emma, you have your hand up.
Unmute. Hi, can you hear me? Hi,
Yes.
Liz, thank you for that. Obviously, I'm from a Swindon organisation, so I understand that we're the town itself isn't one of your priorities at the moment. But just a couple of questions. In terms of the core cost applications which you mentioned, which you told us about, if we were, obviously as a charity, we support a number of different age groups, but if we were to be able to separate out our core cost into the proportion which supports our young carers team, which is a major focus of our work, can we apply to the core cost funding stream on that basis? Obviously not at the moment, but in the future.
Yeah, in the future, yes, you will be able to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, as I say, as long as, you know, your governing document doesn't exclude children and young people, that's absolutely fine. You could, it doesn't matter if you work across different age groups and services, that you can apply for the core costs. Yeah.
And my other question was whether, in terms of projects, whether parent carers looking after children with disabilities, profound disabilities, etc., would be because the children who they look after rely on them so much, whether being a parent carer can be so lonely, whether and hard, whether that would fall into your into a children in need kind of area of focus.
Yeah, I think as I say, because we're an outcomes-based fund, it would really be what's the outcome for the child and the young person in that situation. That really needs to be kind of the focus of the application in when you're talking about funding things that are outside of necessarily a project working directly with the young carer, if you see what I mean. So I think it's just how does it improve and empower young carers through that project.
Brilliant, thank you for that.
Thank you. Ruth's asked another question in the chat. Is the prioritising of the under 1 million turnover new, or has it always been the case? And what does it mean for larger charities in practice?
It's a very good question, Ruth. So it's probably the first time that we're saying it, I guess. We've always wanted to fund locally. You know, we're locally based teams. We want to fund organisations who work in the heart of communities and working to improve local children and young people's lives. So it has always been something that we've definitely considered, but I think we're moving really towards prioritising that and communities. In terms of larger charities, we do fund larger charities, and it's not saying that we won't fund them, it's just saying that we would prioritise smaller organisations at this point. As I say, we do fund larger charities in different regions, but we'll just be prioritising those smaller organisations.
Yeah, Okay, Ruth, did you want to say any more about that, or is that okay, Ruth?
No, that's great. Thank you very much, Liz.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions raised? Oh, Peter, are you trying to?
Yeah, I'm trying to work out how to put my hand up, but I can't work it out. So.
Don't worry.
I'll give up on trying to put my hand up. We work across several areas. So we work in Wiltshire, we work in Devon and Gloucestershire. How do I find out about the priorities for Devon and Gloucestershire? Because I understand the Wiltshire ones now, but I don't know where the others fit in.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are updating our website. So when you go on our websites, you will be able to see every region's priorities. So it will be on there. For Gloucestershire, I cover Gloucestershire as well, so I can pick that up with you another time. And my colleague Juliet, she manages Devon as well, so you can check in with her. But as I say, they will all be on our website. And if you want more detail, if say you don't see an area on the website, but you want to find out what the current level of investment's like, then just get in touch with us and we can have those conversations.
I will do.
Yep.
And I don't mean that as a threat. I mean that.
No, it's all right.
I just worked out how that sounded when I came across. No, of course I will.
Yeah, no, you're more than welcome to, Peter. Don't worry.
Thank you.
Is there any other questions? I'm just wondering one thing in terms of whether you have any sort of top tips for applications, or pet hates that people can avoid when it comes to grant funders looking at applications.
Yeah, I'm not sure I have any pet hates per se, but I think that the important thing for Children in Need, as I say, is because we are an outcomes-based funder, we are really looking for what I like to call the golden thread. It's kind of, what are the main challenges and barriers that the children and young people are facing that you work with, what the project or the organisation are doing to help with that, and what the desired outcomes are, for the end of the project or throughout the lifetime of the project or or grant that you receive. And I think just being able to really articulate that difference that is made to children and young people, that's the thing that gets our attention, I guess. Being able to really demonstrate that. In terms of other top tips, I would say, if you've got a question, if you're just not sure about something, please just drop me an email, give me a call, and I'm more than happy to just have a conversation with you about it. And yeah, and I think that's, sometimes the best thing to do if you're not sure on something is just to get in touch with us.
Excellent. Any further? Oh, yeah, Susanna, you've got your hand up there. I see your electronic hand. Did you want to ask another question?
Yes. Question about, because it just came up then about beneficiaries and how to think about beneficiaries, because we exist in two ways. We are a campaigning organisation by which we have a lot of beneficiaries. So we campaign for parks to include teenage girls, because at the moment nothing is built for teenage girls anywhere in the country. So things like skate parks and fence pitches, they're all dominated by boys. So on one hand, if we get somebody to think about stuff on a council level, that can potentially have thousands of beneficiaries, but we're not going to know them by name, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
But we're also working individually, and I'm partly here because we've got a project in Trowbridge at the moment, that we are working then on a much smaller scale in individual communities. Can we think about general beneficiaries, or would we have is it better for us to apply on a regular project basis and actually get other people to put in applications for the work we're doing in particular places?
Yeah, I think I would say it's really important to show that the children and young people that you're working with, and the barriers and the challenges that they're facing. So I would say probably if you wanted to apply for that specific project in Trowbridge, that would be probably more fitting for Children in Need rather than thousands kind of awareness raising, I guess. I would say, yeah, that would probably fit a bit better.
Yes, although we're also always looking for money to actually run workshops to find out what teenage girls want.
Yeah, and I mean, that's really, really important. As I say, a lot of the strategy is around, how you share power in those decisions, how you get young people's voices heard. So, that's absolutely something that we would, look at funding, is how you're including children, young people in the process of finding out what is it you need, what do you want, and then help deliver on that. So yeah, that sounds great.
Thank you.
Jackie, did you have a question?
Yes, if we were to be invited to put in a bid, how long is it to get an answer on our application?
Yeah, so it's 6 weeks for an EOI, and depending on them from there, obviously you have the 120 days. So depending on how quickly you submit the application then, and how complex the application is. And when I say complex, if you are applying for something that, and I'm not sure if this applies to anyone here, if it was like child sexual exploitation, child criminal exploitation, serious youth violence, then that would have to go to an external assessor for a bit more of a kind of robust assessment. So it really depends on the application, but I would say as a general rule, we're kind of saying that 13, 14 weeks for applications that are over £15,000.
Thank you.
Yeah, Kath, did you want to ask a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to pick up on the point of the external assessors, because you raised that anything involving child sexual exploitation, sexual violence, that kind of thing will go to an external assessor. Who are they, and kind of where are they coming from?
Yeah, of course, that's a really good question. So they're based all across the UK. They are recruited by our central team, and they're managed by the central team as well, and they have extensive training from children in need in order to carry out an assessment. They all have experience of working in the sector, and they're based, as say, across the UK, and we try and get as good a spread as for each regional area as possible to get a good representation for the UK. So they are at the moment having lots of training on the new programs and everything like that. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Brilliant. Any further thoughts or questions? No? Okay, well, there's still a little bit of time, and we've got the session booked till 11:30, so there's still a little bit of time if you do think of anything to ask Liz. I'm just having a look around thinking people may well know about our programmes, but we always like to take the opportunity to just run through what we've got at the moment and a little refresh for everybody. So if you could bear with me, I will just share my screen and we'll just go through what we've got available at the moment. Okay. So just to remind everybody, in terms of Wiltshire Community Foundation and what we do, most people will know us for the grants that we make to groups, but we also have a few grant programmes for individuals, and I'll mention a couple of those at the end. We have some education programmes in particular that would be relevant to young people. We also provide information and advice for groups, so sometimes that's just informally when we're chatting to people, but obviously we have events like this and also some training events as well, which we will share again at the end and let you know what's coming up. And obviously we work quite closely with other organisations like Voluntary Action Swindon, Community First and Wessex Community Action to make sure that between us we're providing a range of support and advice for the sector. A large part of what we do behind the scenes, we support donors to give to their communities. So we have individual donors, corporate donors, other trusts that we work with. And again, at the end, I'll tell you about a couple of grant programmes that we've got at the moment that we're running with some of our corporate donors. And the other thing we do is exploring need in our community. So we have commissioned a report that some of you may have seen that brings together a lot of the statistical information about Wiltshire and Swindon and the need. And there's a link to that on our website, which may help you with application forms, not just to us, but obviously to other funders as well. It helps to give that little bit of sort of statistical background about your area and the need in your area. Okay, so you'll know that our main programme is our community grants programme, so very similar to, I guess, the grants that Liz has been talking about, although of course it's across all age groups. Supports people and communities in need in Wiltshire and Swindon. Again, we're looking for projects and activities that improve people's lives. So it's about, again, the focus on outcome. So very similar to what Liz was saying, we're looking at how is the grant going to make a difference to people and a positive difference to people's lives. Again, we can offer grants for 1, 2 or 3 years. Our minimum grants are usually around £750 a year, and we can go up to a maximum of £5,000 per year. If you're applying for capital, then the maximum you can apply for at any one time is £5,000 in just for 1 year. Our priority also is grassroots, small and medium-sized organisations locally. In terms of beneficiaries, we'll be looking at supporting people or communities living on low incomes. So we need some evidence in an application about how you know that the people that you are supporting are not in a position to fund the services themselves. And at the moment, our particular priorities are around addressing the impact of the pandemic, supporting children and young people, preventing or alleviating poor mental health, tackling poverty and inequality. But obviously, if you have identified a need that sort of falls outside of those, although they are quite general, then we're happy to consider an application as long as you can explain how you know the need exists and how you know that the people you want to support you know, need and want the service that you're going to provide. Again, we can cover quite a range of costs, so you can either apply for something to continue something you're already doing or a new activity or project. We can cover your core costs or your running costs, project or activity costs, and as I said previously, capital costs. But if you're applying for capital costs, whether that's building or equipment, you would need to have the rest of the funds available. You know, so if your project or equipment is going to cost more than £5,000, then you need to have the rest of the funds in place before you apply to us. Partly that is because when we award a grant, we would expect people to be able to start using it within 6 months of it being awarded and to have spent it by the end of 12 months. Obviously, we can negotiate extensions if that's necessary, if there's unforeseen issues, but we would hope that when you apply, you're in a position to spend that grant within the 12 months that it's awarded for. We can fund any sort of charity or not-for-profit organisation, so that can be a constituted voluntary or community organisation. You don't have to be registered with the Charity Commission. You can be registered with a registered charity with the Charity Commission, or a not-for-profit company, which includes community interest companies. But when we're dealing with a not-for-profit company, we want to see that the majority of directors receive no payment from the company and they're essentially operating as a charity. So we would still require there to be at least 3 people in that governing position, but not receiving payment from the company. You can only apply for one or hold one community grant at a time. So you couldn't look at putting another application in until you've spent and reported on any previous community grants that you have had. We do run other programmes, which I'll mention later, for other funders, so you can hold those grants and a community grant if they're awarded. You need to be a local or regional organisation. You need to have a base in Wiltshire or Swindon or somewhere in the south or southwest of England, but if that's the case, the beneficiaries must live in Wiltshire and Swindon. We can only fund work that is supporting people in Wiltshire and Swindon. You can be a branch of a national organisation, but you need to have a local management committee, your own constitution and your own bank account. So we don't fund national organisations that operate nationally. And then I think very similar to what Liz has said, I'm probably just reiterating hers, but our sort of eligibility requirements, we would need to see 3 people on some form of management committee or directors or trustees. They can't be related to each other or in a long-term relationship or living at the same address. Or you have to have at least 3 of those people who aren't in that position. We would need to see bank accounts, a bank account with at least 2 signatories that are not related to each other. We wouldn't typically fund an organisation that has more than 12 months running costs in unrestricted reserves, but obviously we don't see that very often. And it may be that you are building up reserves for a specific purpose. So we would talk to you about your designated reserves if you are, got a project on the horizon that you would need those funds for. Yes, and we would be looking at your financial planning to see where the grant would fit in with your overall costs. Again, we'd see a constitution. We're also asking for safeguarding policies, and we do very similar to checks to those that Liz mentioned. We're also looking at equal opportunities policies as well, because we're looking at making sure that each organisation has thought through how they are as inclusive as possible across all the sort of equality strands. Both for their volunteers, any employees they have, their trustees, but also for the people that they support. We want to make sure that the organisations we fund and the services and support that we fund is as open and welcoming as possible, is actively engaging with diverse communities. And we can support brand new organisations, but if they don't have those things in place, then we can you can sort of partner with another more established charitable organisation who could support you and hold the grant for you. So we can really support those very new grassroots organisations if those arrangements can be made. This information is obviously all on our website, but just to be aware, we can't make grants that's going to be either given out to individuals or families. It needs to be for a service. I said we do have some programs that do fund individuals, so I'll mention a couple of those later. We particularly look at whether an activity is duplicating an existing service. So if it's a new activity, particularly, we want to see that you've made links with other people doing similar things in your area to make sure you're complementing and not duplicating what they're doing, and that people are getting the best support they possibly can. And yeah, there's a little list here, so we can't fund medical things or animal welfare or political or religious activities. And we don't fund statutory bodies, but some of our programs that we run for other people do. So it's worth always checking if you're ever applying on behalf of a parish council. Okay, and then just quickly to run through a couple of other programs that we've got open. So you may have heard of the #IWill movement and fund. This is a national pot of money that grant funders can apply to have a pot to distribute in their local areas. So we've got that running at the moment. So it's currently open, closing on Friday the 11th of November. Grants are between £1,000 and £10,000, but we will be looking at applications very carefully that are for over £5,000, because we would need to see evidence of more significant reach and impact for those particular amounts. And that is any activities that will create social action opportunities for young people. So they're talking mainly about volunteering, campaigning or fundraising. So any activities like that. That really engage and involve young people and help them to build that sort of habit for a lifetime, really, in terms of contributing to the community. Projects can be for children aged 10 to 20 or up to 25 for disabled young people. And the programme priorities would be particularly for projects that work with that younger age group, the 10 to 14s, and are working with people from sort of more deprived areas or communities, and particularly some of the sort of minority ethnic communities that might have been particularly affected by COVID. So they're looking at sort of diverse funding, and they're also wanting to see a good level of involvement from young people, whether that be setting up the project in the first place, writing the application, running the project, and or sort of evaluating the project at the end. So you'd need to get some element of youth involvement into your application if you wanted to apply for that fund. Also very similar to our own community grants, we work with Wessex Water Foundation and run a community fund with them. That's open at the moment, closing on Monday the 24th of October. It's a fairly straightforward application, and grants are up to £3,000, and say very similar to ours. It's about improving the lives of local people, especially those who are most in need of support. So largely those people who are affected by sort of financial disadvantage. Their priorities are supporting people with financial difficulty or lacking access to services, projects that take place in areas of multiple deprivation or rural isolation, building stronger, more resilient communities, managing or avoiding debt, and educating people on the steps that people can take, so whether that's sort of budgeting skills or that type of support. For Swindon groups, it's important to note with Wessex Water, unfortunately, that their area doesn't include Swindon, so it's only projects that operate in their area. So it doesn't include Swindon and some of the areas immediately around Swindon, unfortunately. But if you do live in Swindon or do operate your service in Swindon, there is the Science Museum Wroughton Solar Park Community Benefit Fund, which is quite a mouthful. They have 2 grant programmes. The main one with us is their Sustainable Futures grants, which are grants up to £20,000, but they must have some form of link to sustainability. They talk about sort of science, technology, engineering, maths and the environment, but so if you want to get young people involved in you know, environmental projects or campaigning or anything around sort of sustainability and renewable energy and those sorts of things, then you know, that this would be a potential for a Swindon application. I haven't put a slide up about it, but they also have a very, very small pot, small grants for very specific areas around the solar park. So it is worth having a look on the website for that list. So it would be, you know, Wroughton and some of the smaller parish areas around there. And talking about the environment, Wessex Water also run an environment fund with us. So again, if you've got any projects you want to do with young people that or any of your beneficiaries that would focus on the environment, again, sustainability or biodiversity or improving nature, engaging people with the environment, anything like that, that runs sort of around May and June time each year. So that's another one just to consider going forward if you want to do any sort of environmental projects with any of your beneficiaries. So all the information about the programmes are on the website, and similar to the offer from Liz, we are always happy to talk to people, you know, prior to making an application or during the application process. We would always talk to people, and we often do, once we've received an application, we will often ring people and just chat through the request and you know, build that relationship for going forward as well. I did mention some grant programs for individuals. We do have, you may be aware of our Surviving Winter programme, and sort of some of our energy work that we're sort of building at the moment. So there is more information about that on our website, but 2 specific programmes for young people. We offer vocational grants. That's for young people undertaking vocational courses, training or apprenticeships. Grants up to £1,000 to help them with their costs for those courses. That could be travel, it could be IT equipment, it could be other equipment or clothing that they need for their particular course, anything like that. And we do also, more recently, we've developed a relationship to create the Southwest Enterprise Fund, and that's for young people 18 to 30 starting their own business. And so that's can apply for things to help to set up and run your business, as long as you as long as it's a fairly new business, has been running for no more than 2 years. So if you're in contact with any young people that might want those sorts of individual support, that would be really helpful. And then just to mention that obviously, as well as running these Meet the Funder webinars, which we're trying to run monthly, apart from in August because lots of people are away, we also have a couple of networks. So we have Connecting People networks, one for Swindon, one for Wiltshire. That's grew out of some work around loneliness, but it's really good for different organisations to get together 3 or 4 times a year and just talk about what's happening and the challenges that they've got. We also have a youth work network that we developed during COVID, as quite a lot of our youth projects were working quite sort of in isolation and having lots of challenges. So that's kept going. And so that's just sort of regular opportunities for youth workers and youth organisations to get together and share. And then we also run some workshops as well. So the next one coming up is Using Commercial Thinking and Business Planning to Drive Not-for-Profit Growth, is the full title of that. And we've got one of our local community interest companies coming along to talk about that. And at some point we'll have another workshop around understanding needs. So that will be looking at that report I mentioned and how to use those statistics in funding applications and to understand need locally. And they can all be, you can look at those on Eventbrite and you know, keep up to date with what we've got going either through Eventbrite, or you'll see information on our website as well. Okay, so we're nearly finished there. I think that's pretty much the end. There's just a few bits here that is worth mentioning. We've got a link to a searchable database on our website for looking for grants. My Funding Central is available. It's free for very small groups. There is a fee as the size of the group gets bigger, but it's worth having a look at that. And I'd mentioned our relationship with Community First, Voluntary Action Swindon and Wessex Community Action. If you want any further sort of advice or information, particularly around sort of developing your organisation, governance issues, anything like that, they're worth contacting. Wessex Community Action does host Wiltshire Together, which is a website that you can sort of connect with other people. So if you're not already on that, it's worth having a look and helping to grow that and grow the connections across the county. And yeah, I've just put the NCVO and a link to the resource centre as well, which both got lots of information, but the resource centre in particular is quite good for very small groups if there's anything that you want advice and support on. But obviously we will send the slides out, so don't feel you've got to scribble that all down now. Right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I feel like I've just talked at you really fast, so I don't know if anybody's got any questions about our programme at all or any of the funding. We've got 2 minutes left. Oh, Susanna. Oh, sorry, you're on mute still.
I have a really geeky question about the I Will Fund.
Yes.
Because we've got, as I said, we've got a project in Trowbridge that is going on at the moment. We are based literally just over the border in Frome. Does that disqualify us from applying for a grant to do a really specific programme of youth engagement in Trowbridge?
No, it shouldn't do, no, because we can look at regional based organisations as long.
Yeah, fine. Yeah, because it's what, 7 miles.
yeah. No, that's fine. I say as long as the beneficiaries and as long as it fits, it's really worth. I Will is one of those ones really worth understanding what it is they're looking for, because it's about young people having that opportunity to do something in their community. So. Yeah.
Well, because what it is actually about doing a consultation with girls about lighting and safety in Trowbridge Town Centre in association with the architects who are working on the urban realm. So it's about having a voice and putting their stuff in. So I think it should be quite a good fit. We've already done a mapping programme with young girls. We've got a good relationship with the schools. It's relatively... and it's about also empowering them to feel they have a voice in the built environment.
Okay, yeah, brilliant, thank you. Yeah. Any other questions, or should we bring the session to the end now? Okay, lovely. Well, obviously the recording will be available at some point, and we will send the slides out to everybody that's registered, so you'll have that as well. And obviously either contact me if it's anything, or contact the foundation, there's only a few of us anyway, if you've got any questions. And obviously Liz is available for anything about children in need. Liz, did you want to say anything to end?
No, just thank you all for coming, and yeah, and please, as I say, get in touch if you need anything.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, thank you ever so much. So we'll say goodbye now, and we'll stop the recording.